Okay. Hey, good morning, everybody. So I found I was traveling through ancient Greece, and I found a street musician, a lovely lady who I asked, hey, can I read in front of you today while you play? And she said, sure, go ahead and do that. So that's what I'm going to do because in today's story, we are going to talk about music. Music is a big part of today's story. So let's move into it right now with the nine muses. That's what we'll talk about right now to start our story. The nine muses were daughters of Zeus and the Titaness Mnemosyne. Their mother's memory was as long as her beautiful hair, for she was the goddess of memory and knew all that had happened since the beginning of time. She gathered her nine daughters around her and told them wondrous tales. She told them about the creation of the earth and the fall of the Titans, about the glorious Olympians and their rise to power, about Prometheus, who, as you remember, stole the heavenly fire, about the sun and the stars, and most of all, about the greatness and wisdom of their father, Zeus. The nine muses listened to her with wide, sparkling eyes and turned her stories into poems and songs so they would never be forgotten. Apollo, the god of music, trained them and taught them to sing harmoniously together. He led the choir of the Muses through the halls of Olympus and over the slopes of Mount Parnassus, and their music rang so pure and fine that even the songbirds fell silent to listen. Each of the Muses had her own special art. Calliope, the muse of heroic poetry, was the first among them. She had a mortal son named Orpheus, and he sang almost as beautifully as the muses themselves. When he was grown, he left his mother and his eight loving aunts and went to live in his father's kingdom of Thrace to bring the joy of music to earth. His voice rang so pure and so true that the fiercest warriors put down their swords, and savage beasts lay spellbound at his feet. Trees pulled up their roots and moved closer to listen, and even hard rocks rolled up to listen to him. And that's where you get hard rock. Hard rock comes from Orpheus, the ancient Greek. Okay, so let's keep going. And on the page here, I hope you look at all the different muses. Um, all right, let's get into the story of Orpheus himself. Orpheus's music was joyful and gay, meaning happy, for he was in love with Eurydice, a sweet young maiden, and she loved him in return. On the day of their wedding, his song swelled out, filled with happiness as his bride danced on light feet through the meadow. Suddenly she trod on a snake and sank to the ground, dead of its poisonous bite. Hermes gently closed her eyes and led her away to the underworld. No more songs came from Orpheus's throat. No more tunes rang out from his lyre. All joy had gone out of his life. He had to have his Eurydice back. Weeping and grieving, Orpheus wandered about, searching for an entrance to Hades. And when at the end of the world he found it, he did what no living man had ever done before. He went down to the realm of the dead to beg for the return of his beloved. His music had power to move hard rocks. It might also move the cold heart of Hades. Hope gave him back his songs, and playing and singing, he walked down the dark, steep path. His silvery voice floated down through the dark like a gentle summer breeze, and its magic moved the iron gates of Hades. They sprang open and let him in. And Cerberus, the three-headed watchdog, laid down at his feet and let him pass. The whole dark underworld stilled and listened to Orpheus's music as he entered the realm of the dead, singing about his great love, begging to have his Eurydice back. The fluttering souls hushed. Those condemned to eternal pain stopped groaning, and their torturers, the avenging Furies, the Erinyes, dropped their whips and wept tears of blood. Hades, the pitiless king of the dead, sat on his black marble throne with Queen Persephone at his side. Even he was so moved by the music that tears rolled down his sallow cheeks, and cold Persephone sobbed. Her heart was so touched that she turned to her husband and begged him to let Eurydice go back to the sunny world above. Hades gave his consent, but he made one condition. Orpheus must not look at his bride before they reached the realm of the living. She would walk behind him, but if he turned and looked at her, she must return to the underworld, overcome with joy. Now, did you notice that's a condition for this mortal to follow? Well, let's see if he does. Overcome with joy, Orpheus started up the dark path, and as his music faded into the distance, gloom again descended over the underworld. The way was long, and as Orpheus walked on and on, doubt began to creep into his mind. Had Hades deceived him? Were the souls he heard behind him really the sounds? Were the sounds he heard behind him really Eurydice's footsteps? He had almost reached the upper world and could already see a dim light ahead when he could bear his doubts no longer. He had to turn and see if she really was there. He saw her sweet face, but only for an instant. For again, Hermes appeared at her side. He turned her about and led her back to the dark gloom below. Faintly, Orpheus heard her whisper farewell. He had lost her forever through his lack of faith. Yeah, something about faith and trust. It's kind of important. Orpheus never again found joy on earth. He wandered into the wilderness to grieve in solitude. He sang, but now his songs were so mournful that tears trickled down the cheeks of wild beasts, and the willows wept. The weeping willow, it's a type of tree. A band of wild nymphs stormed through the woods, shouting to Orpheus to join them. They yelled and carried on so loudly that they could not hear his silvery voice and were not touched by its magic. They wanted him to dance with them, but he had no heart for their revelry, their happiness. And in a fury, they threw themselves over him. They tore him to pieces and tossed his body into a river. The river stopped its gurgling to listen, for the haunting voice of Orpheus still issued forth from his dead lips as he floated down to the open sea. The muses grieved over him. They searched the sea till they found his body on the shores of the island of Lesbos. There they gave him a proper funeral, and at last he could rejoin his beloved Eurydice as a flittering ghost in the underworld. Okay. The Muses. The Muses sang not only of the gods and of the spirit sprung from Mother Earth, but also of great kings and heroes, descended all from mighty Zeus. The tales of heroes and brave men still ring in our ears as we listen to the Muses sing. And tomorrow we'll talk about the mortal descendants of Zeus. The first ones, Europa and Cadmus. Okay, until then, I'm going to listen to the rest of her song, and then I'll go have some Greek salad, one of my favorites. All right, guys, take care till tomorrow. Bye-bye.